and yesterday we had other things to discuss. So I'll just share my screen, show you the motion. Give me a second.
Uh, Also, just announcing that today we will hosting World University Championship winner at 8:30. So come and join the session. He's the world's one of the best debater, Aniket Chakravarti from Oxford University. If you have any questions, yeah.
Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
ma'am.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, but it's loading. Okay, I will give it some time. So basically, the motion is you loading supports the glorification of soldiers as heroes. This house supports the glorification of soldiers.
Hi, I think Nitisha ma'am is having a glitch, so we'll just give her a couple of minutes to, join back and continue with the session.
Supports the glorification of soldiers. And like yesterday, I need you to put your inputs in the chat. But what I need you to do this time is you give definition of the conversation. Yeah, you just give me arguments, right? So try to analyze the argument today with definition of the norms and the modes as well. We'll have till 6, let's say 55, and I'll share my screen for motion and the specifications.
Miss, your voice is glitching. We can't hear you properly.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Am I audible now? Everybody goes from side crop or op depending on which side they prefer. But please make an argument from a particular side. Don't mix the two sides, all right? Also, I hope I'm audible now.
Yes, you are now.
Yeah, ma'am, you're on.
Also, don't just suddenly start writing arguments.
What was the motion?
I'm sharing my screen for that. But don't just suddenly start making arguments, guys. Like I see some of you making your arguments all of a sudden on the chat. I'm sure this argument is not fully analyzed. So give yourself some time, give yourself some, like, give it some thought before you put it in the chat. It's not about who does it fast, it's about who does it well. So think first. Devika, I'll need sharing rights.
Oh yeah, you have the rights.
I don't. Yeah, now I do. Thank you.
No worries.
Ma'am, how are the sides being decided in this debate?
You are free to choose a side you like, but you'll have to give me definitions and arguments from that particular side without mixing it with the other.
Okay.
So you all have time till 55, and you need to give me the things that the slide calls for. Stakeholder status quo. I have given you an example of how you define the world in which the debate, you can't use my way. You'll have to do it alternatively according to what you think is fit. So you say stakeholders, these are the stakeholders, this is how they're interrelated. You do the terms definition, and then you do the what does the world look like analysis before you make the argument.
The strong book argument contains the stable character of the system. For example, there is good light out. There it goes light out. कहाँ से बोल्ड कैरेक्टर शो कर रहे हैं? I feel like a pirate all the time. This
Please mute yourself.
please will be happen and before we have to create my outfit.
keep putting in your messages. There's only a limited. I mean, I will not take repeat arguments. Okay, so if I'm skipping your arguments, it's what the arguments are perhaps repetitive, and we have already taken such an argument in the past. Right? So, like yesterday, we had the argument of motivation quite a lot. I did not.
Hi, good evening, Kamal.
Hi. I think Nitiksha facing some technical issues. So, Afrin, you're here. You want to take it?
Yes, I am here. Till when did Nitiksha cover though? It's day 3 training, right?
Yeah. So today we're gonna do a mock kind of debate. Go through the arguments and all. It's like annual day.
The topic is on the glorification of soldiers as heroes.
Yeah. Can I just request somebody to just put that back on the box, on the chat box? I can see the arguments that are coming in.
Yeah. Okay. I got disconnected for a minute. There.
She's back. All right.
Yeah. So we have inputs and they can keep coming in. But the thing is that we'll take a couple of arguments and I'll try to prioritize the new arguments, right? Because we can't be reading the analysis for the same argument over and over again. So if your argument is being skipped from the chat box, it's probably because it's already been made. All right. So the first response is from Shreyas, and let's see what that looks like. So first of all, it's a lot of typing. So try to keep it short, okay? Try to say things that you want to say, but try to make it short. But let's read it regardless. While, yes, it is quite important to respect those who fight for our country, at the end of the day, when a war breaks out, it is every person's duty to fight for what they believe is right. One is not glorified for doing one's household chores, but both must be carried out. Why should one be glorified as a hero? Well, yes, the fallen deserve every bit of respect at the end of the day. Fighting for the survival of your country, the nation you pledge allegiance to, is your duty. Moreover, it must be said that there are so many different ways people save lives. Of course, warriors face life and death, but the world cannot constantly praise these men. Moreover, warriors, no matter how patriotic, are still killing. Okay, good arguments made there. The only thing is that, see, this is my piece of advice on this. So this is a classic example of having a lot of matter but not enough method. All right. So for example, there's a lot of arguments being made in this particular debate, but or the kind of response that we have from shares. But what's not happening is that you're not demarcating which counts as one single argument. For example, saying that glorification of one profession is detrimental to other professions is itself an argument which needs a lot of definition, which needs examples, etc. So this is one argument. The second argument you have in your passage is about dutiful, not just dutifulness, but in terms of just how violence is perpetuated through the profession that the soldiers are involved in. So we can't glorify a profession that advocates for violent measures. So that's a second argument, and that's a principal argument. Do you understand? So while the first argument is a practical argument, you're talking about how other professions are going to feel about glorification of soldiers and they're not going to be given their due importance. The second argument is about principal legitimacy of glorifying soldiers. So there is no principal legitimacy in the glorification of soldiers insofar as you should not glorify violence, because violence is at the end of the day about killing. So I think the analysis is right on dot here. What is missing is flag posting. What counts as an argument? When does one argument end and the other start? So those kinds of things you might have to be mindful of, Shreyas, and people in general, like whoever's listening and understands. Also, just be on the same argument as the one that I am on in the chat to get maximum clarity. So now we're reading Rachita's. As proposition, I can say glorification of soldiers as heroes is totally correct, because soldiers sacrifice their lives for the safety of the country. We, the people of the country, should inspire the youth to support our soldiers and consider them as our heroes. All right, so you're talking about sacrifices and how soldiers make a lot of them, and why sacrifice also invites special attention then in the form of glorification. While that makes sense to me, I think the analysis is still slightly less here, because I don't understand why other professions are also not sacrificing. Because the point that Shreyas is making before you, Rachita, is that everybody sacrifices to some extent given their profession. So if I'm teaching, I'm also sacrificing. If somebody else is like operating on you because they're a doctor, they're also sacrificing their time with family. They're in the emergency rooms late at night. So everybody is sacrificing. How is a soldier's sacrifice different or more profound than somebody else's sacrifice is something that's still like missing on in your case. So the other thing that you guys should do in order to make your argument sound better is always compare it with what is happening on the other side. So you're saying you want to glorify soldiers, and this is what the world looks like for on your side. But what is happening on the other side where soldiers are not glorified? You're saying sacrifice is happening from the soldiers in this particular area of work. But then does this mean that sacrifice is not happening? Does that mean that the sacrifice is not happening in like other professions, or like there is a lesser sacrifice in other professions? So that kind of an like argument. All right, now the next argument is glorification can be defined as highlighting the importance of a certain group of people in society and praising them. Defense is integral to any country and to the safety of its people. We still reside, this is from Vani Sharma, by the way, if you're looking for this argument on the chat. Defense is integral to any country and to the safety of its people. We still reside in a day. I mean, okay, we still live in a world where our countrymen, our soldiers fight for us to keep us safe, risking their human lives, which are as important and valuable as that of any person, if not more. Yet today we see that the pride and moral responsibility that the youth once felt in fighting for their country is no longer present, almost as if we have forgotten the role of patriotism in our lives. By glorifying soldiers who have sacrificed their lives and the happiness of their families for us, we can reinform the youth of countries of what true patriotism is. Okay, good. So I think Vani's arguments would count as an extension on closing. Because so far the arguments that we have had in favor of glorification is that look, soldiers should be glorified because they are on the battlefield, they're killing and dying for us. Nobody wants to get into that kind of a business, but they are doing it for the greater good. But Vani's argument is different. Vani is saying that it's not just about like being on the battlefield. Sure, everybody does that. But the thing is that this argument particularly talks about the situation of a particular profession in the time that we're living in. So when do you have to glorify something, or when can you justify the glorification of something? You can justify the glorification of whatever you're trying to glorify when you say that this is something that's been hurt in the past, or this is something that's been harmed in the past. For example, this profession of soldiers might be just as important as any other profession, but maybe it has not been given its due. For example, if you're a doctor, you're respected in the society, you can go back to your family, you make a lot of money for like even small appointments. The maximum amount of time a doctor can give you is 20-30 seconds for like a consultation, for which they charge you like 1,400 rupees, 2,000 rupees if you go to somebody who's practicing privately. So this means that the soldiers get their due, and the doctors get their due, just like teachers get their due. Soldiers, not so much. Because soldiers in status quo or in the world that we're living in do not get their due according to Vani, it's important that we glorify them. I think this argument then makes more sense than any other argument, because Vani necessarily tells us about a problem in the world that is happening with reference to the soldier's profession right now. And by extension, she explains how she's solving it through the glorification. Do you understand this point that I have made? Because this was important. Give me a thumbs up if you do.
Yes, ma'am. Understood.
Yes, others, like, give me a thumbs up if you understand. See, you have to be all ears when we're doing these practice sessions. If you only wait for feedback on your argument, not going to help. Like, your argument doesn't even have to be there for you to like learn from it. What you need to do is ensure that you're listening to the feedback that I gave on every argument and actively ask me questions. Interrupt me not as in unmute yourself all at once. Just raise your hand and I'll acknowledge. Are there any doubts so far? I want to see if there are any doubts. Give me a show of hands if there are any doubts. Arnav, yes.
Yeah, so I had a doubt. It's not related to this topic, but it kind of is. Ma'am, my question was, how should we make full use of the 5 minutes?
See, okay, so that depends, right? You should make full use of your 5 minutes by rebutting effectively, rebuilding effectively, doing the setup effectively. Do you get it? Like, analyze everything. Every time you say something, ask yourself, why am I saying it? And say it out loud. For example, some people might want to say that, look, soldiers fight for the country and that's why they deserve glorification. But then this is not good enough, right? You might think I have made a point, but this point is not enough. Why? Because it doesn't explain how this sacrifice is different from other forms of sacrifice, or how this profession, I mean, sure, soldiers sacrifice something, but then every profession involves the sacrifice of some sort of like a benefit. So what is so special about soldiers? So how you can use those 5 minutes is by definitely giving different examples, getting the judge to understand the motion from different stakeholders perspective. So it at once I will try to get the judge to understand what the soldier's perspective is, and by extension I will also try to make the judge understand the perspective of the person who's glorifying the soldier, like normal people living in the country. And then I would try to look at this situation from the government's viewpoint. So one way of you making full use of your 5 minutes is to think about a particular situation from every stakeholder's perspective and shine light on it. The second way of doing it is to think about what, like, comparisons, right? You can't just say that, look, this is what is happening on my side and this is why I celebrate it. You also need to tell me that you are the better side, because when you compare yourself to the other side or what's happening on the other side, you find yourself to be in a better position. You can say that in a world where glorification of soldiers happens, soldiers get better salaries, soldiers get better recognition, the families of the soldiers who have died get better compensation when you glorify them. And on their world where there is no glorification, none of those things happen, because nobody pays enough attention to the job of a soldier. Everybody pays more attention to things like UPSC services, etc., etc. Do you understand, Arnav?
Yes. Ma'am, also during the debate, what should we refer to the judge as?
Okay, so mostly people like to call the judge only. So, judge, you should buy your argument for so and so reason. Or, like, if you have more than one judge in the room, you can call it a panel. Panel, this is why you should buy your points, this is why you shouldn't, right? So, judge or panel, formal terms.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Let's see. Mansi, yes?
Oh, yes, ma'am. My doubt was that when you start your 5 minute speech, I understand that you need to have like proper analysis of your point, but is it all like would it be important? Would the format of it have to be that uh you have to define the the main key point of the motion, then go on to state that my point will be this. This is valid due to this, and then take a POI and then conclude it. That would be the format of the 5 minutes, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else? All right, let's go back to the responses in the chat then. All right, so I responded to very, very long responses, guys. How do you think I'm going to read through all of this? Very difficult. I'm going to skip the very long ones. Okay, Vani's, we're done. Kunal's, let me just go through it by myself quickly and mention what I think is important. The act of glorification. So Kunal is going up. He's saying that glorification isn't a good thing. The act of glorification causes the downsides of the act to be overseen. As we glorify soldiers in the army, it may cause more recruits within the army who are running after at I don't know what that means. This word might be a typo, to achieve what was advertised to them, but this may lead them into not focusing on the downsides such as death. Parents of soldiers may be proud at first due to the accomplishment of the children, but if the parents are not aware of or overseeing the risks due to the glorification, it may cause them to blame the government itself because of what may happen. The motivation of soldiers may be high at first once they see the glorified version of the act of being a soldier, but once facing the devastating risk, they may feel dim. Okay, great arguments, Kunal. I think also the way they have been organized, 1, 2, 3, it's structured. So you know when an argument ends and starts. So basically, the premise of Kunal's argument, which I also think will count in closing as an extension, it's a new, refreshing argument. It says that, look, glorification does something to the people who are looking forward to having a career, let's say as a soldier or in the military. If you glorify the profession of being a soldier, you're likely to overlook the downside of a profession. And no profession exists without downsides, right? So even if you want to become like a civil servant, and UPSC is something that is really like uh, appreciated by parents and society for any child, UPSC also has its drawbacks, right? For example, if you become a civil servant, you're going to have to be posted in different states, even in the states that you don't like to be in because you don't understand the culture of that state, or you don't like the food in that state or something. But you also have to there's a lot of other restrictions. Like I think civil servants can't invest in the stock market or something. So there's a lot of restrictions because of which somebody might not want to become a civil servant. This means that the best of professions have some downside, and glorification means the removal of an unbiased approach, right? And like replacement of an unbiased approach with a biased approach, where you think being a soldier is only a good thing. But Kunal is saying it can be misleading at times, and because it is misleading, we should choose not to glorify so that people can make a decision based on their fair analysis of the good and the bad in it. How many of you understand that point? Give me a thumbs up. I think you need to understand. And for that, you need to be listening or actively asking questions if you don't understand despite listening. Others, what's up with the rest of you? Like if there's only 6, 7 people giving me a thumbs up, this means the rest of you are confused, which is fair, but then you need to ask me questions. Okay, let's see. Vivan, what is your question?
Ma'am, I just had a question about the person that we have to use. Like, do we have to use, can we use first person while we're speaking in our speech, or do we have to refer to something in
No, so
particular?
when you're referring to yourself, you can say I believe, I think. So first person is fine. But when you're referring to the other people in other teams, you can call them by their speaker role. So the LO, DLO, like that.
Okay. And ma'am, just one more doubt. Can we directly tell the judge if we are in the closing government why, like directly saying that I believe that our speech was better than the opening government, and can we directly state that, or do we have
Yeah,
to?
you can directly start with that. So ideally, if you're doing the member speech, which is the first speech on CG, right?
Yes.
You're supposed to first mention, see, you always need to set the ground before doing something. Do you get it? So like
Okay.
when you think of it as like writing a novel, when you're trying to write a novel, you're always going to give it a setup, right? Once upon a time in a far, like land far away sort of a situation. So you have to do the setup. You have to tell me how you came up with this extension. I came up with this extension because I think this is what the opening lacks. This is what the opening has done so far. These are our problems with their opening. This is how we're going to fix it. Do you get it?
So we have to state that these are the problems with our opening, because won't that say that we are contradicting our opening?
No, I don't mean to say your opening bench. I mean to say opening half debate.
Okay.
So between OG and OO, what are the things that have been missed? See, knifing is when you say that our opening said the wrong thing. Knifing is
Yeah.
not when you say that they did not make a point at all. You can
Okay.
say that they made fewer points and we have more points. That's not knifing. Knifing is when you're trying to take the case down, when you're trying to contradict them on what they said,
Okay. Got it.
right? So, for example, opening says that India is poor, and you suddenly want to say no, India is rich. That's a problem because that's direct contestation and contradiction.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
All right. You're welcome. Um, Ranveer, yes.
Mama, I just had a doubt about, Mom, if we use internet in the online session, how will the judges know?
See, the judges will know because if you use the internet, your language will give it away. But even if you paraphrase, you're not going to be able to analyze your arguments like a person can analyze their original arguments. So, see, it's not about statistics. So, I don't know how net can help you anyway, right? So, there is no like clear cut method of finding out who is using the internet and who is not. But trust me when I say the judges have an instinct for this because they've been debating for like a lot of years now.
Thank you, Mom.
You're welcome. All right. You can lower your hand, Ranveer, now. Are there other questions that I can help you guys with before we read any other responses in the chat? Okay, none. So if you don't ask me questions, I'll be assuming that you understand the discussion that's happening through the responses in the chat. All right. You've got to listen. There's no alternative to listening here and understand. And if you don't, ask me a question. I'm going to do a few more responses now, not many, because yeah, we're running out of time. So basically, let's look at this is Aditya, and just 1 second. I'm looking for an argument I can read and give analysis on. Okay, we did Kunal's. Now next is Akanksha's. Akanksha is on opposition. She says that as the opposition, we regret the glorification of soldiers, even though they work hard to protect our nation, because it overshadows the other heroes in our country. Okay, similar argument, right? So like other professions are also important. Doctors are just as like strained in their professional field. Think about a doctor who is operating on you, or like not on you, on a random person, and they're trying their best to save this person, but then this person dies regardless. Think about the amount of blood, and think about the kind of emergency situations that the doctor has to be immersed in at all points in time. Do you think this kind of an exhaustion or this kind of a misery is something that everybody would like to get exposed to every single day? I mean, there's a lot of people who don't even want to go to the hospital because it just doesn't give them good feelings, like about, I mean, it always makes you scared or like makes you feel bad, because more often than not when we go to the hospital, it's generally because there's a problem, right? It's very few it's not, so there is like a negative perspective that people have, and doctors have to go there every day due to this being an occupational hazard. So you can make those kinds of comparisons, right? So whoever thinks that they can't make use of full 5 minutes because 5 minutes is a lot of time, then you're wrong, because you can like give so many examples and you can give so much of analysis, because if you don't, then the judge will not buy your point. Do you understand? So this kind of an analysis, the example that I gave about how what a doctor's life looks like is important. So ideally, you should be, see, debating is a lot like painting a picture. You try to, I mean, you don't have to sound academic, all right? You don't have to use big words either. What you're supposed to do in a debate is paint a picture. What does the world look like on my side, and what does the world look like on their side? What is a soldier's life like? Like, I mean, have you? I'm sure you guys have seen those Instagram reels and YouTube videos where people post there, what does a day in my life look like, sort of a thing. You can do a similar kind of analysis for soldiers and doctors. Panel, we think on our side of the house, the day like a typical day in a soldier's life includes these many things, and we think all of these are taxing. And then alternatively, a typical day in a doctor's life looks like this. So this is how you can analyze. Do you all understand? So it's basically about analysis derived from your real time experience, like real world experience, instead of you looking for very academic and profound terms, instead of you looking for statistics. That's why internet is not going to help you as much as your own ability to think on the spot and understand from your life experiences is going to help. All right. Isha's response then: glorification of soldier has long-term unseen implications where giving the stakeholder more power is dangerous. It is in most unstable states, it is historically proven that the military takes over leadership. This can be seen in the Spanish Civil War. Okay, excellent point made there. Now, this is also an extension because this is not a point that anybody else has made so far. Now, Isha is saying that look, military is a part of the political ecosystem, and there are other things in the political ecosystem. There's the executive, there's the legislature, which means that you don't want your government to be overshadowed. You don't want the military to run like the government or topple the government or subvert its authority, right? If you want balance, so basically the point she's making is about balance of power, and how balance of power will go away if you glorify one particular profession. For example, think about this. If we glorify the prime minister of a country, we don't do that because why glorify? It's not like the ruling party is more important than the opposition parties, because ruling party rules the country, that's for sure. But if we glorify them, then they're also likely to become more corrupt, because we have to give equal importance to the opposition as well. How many of you understand that this point and the one I made before this? Not many thumb. I mean, I don't see a lot of people, a lot of you engaging. I don't quite know why, because this is important. Okay, if you don't understand, then ask me questions. Are there any questions I can help you with at this point? Give me a show of hands if you have a question. Yes, please. Says Raja can.
Yeah, could you just repeat the point? I couldn't hear it very well.
Okay, that is, I mean, that's a slightly long point. I think, okay, if you're missing out on points, you can watch the recording. But the point I'm making here is that this argument that Isha shared is good because it's talking about balance of power, which wasn't talked about in the past. So, how balance of power works is that no matter how important the role of an actor is, you don't glorify that actor, because if you glorify that actor, then they will get unquestioning, like they will get unbridled power, and they will use this power to like unleash terror on you if they could, because people tend to become corrupted when they assume power. Do you understand? So balance of power is a new argument, is what I'm saying.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Adya, yes.
So, you said earlier that the internet really can't help us. So basically, when we get the motion, we have to collect our own thoughts and present them in a way that convinces the judges, right?
Yes, yeah. So for example, do you need to be told by the internet what the life of a doctor looks like? Mostly,
No,
not quite,
like
right?
kind of
So
obvious.
these are, yeah, these are things that are obvious, but they also need explanation. They also need some sort of an imaginative push. For example, if you're not like creative enough or like intellectually stimulated, you're going to probably define the doctor's life as like uh I don't know, boring, one where you have to go to the hospital, and hospital is like makes you nauseatic, etc. But then nauseous, I'm sorry. And if you are like more creative, then you'll probably literally paint the life like a day in a doctor's life. So the difference is between what kind of an analysis you can give to the obvious things. It's not about anything else like statistics, etc. Do you understand?
Okay. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Tanisha, yes.
Ma'am, we had a difficulty with our team to choose who would go first speaker and
I
second
can't
speaker.
hear you. You'll have to be louder than that.
How would you decide who is your first speaker and well, like what skills does a first speaker need?
Okay, that's a fair question. So basically, your first speaker should definitely have the ability to absorb a lot of content coming from the out, like from outside. This means that the person who is very good at understanding what the teammate is trying to say and like collating it with what they wanted to say and making a speech out of it, somebody who is very comfortable doing impromptu speaking is somebody who should go first. Because see, soon after prep time is over, you'll have to go and deliver your speech. This means that you can't be lost, or you can't be, I mean, you can't be the kind of speaker who needs more time before they can deliver a speech. So first speaker needs that kind of like a flexibility of being able to speak on the spot and not having a problem with it, but also being a very keen listener during case prep. The second speaker is supposed to be more analytical, somebody who will listen to the other side and will come up with rebuttals to that. All right. And also, again, on the spot wit is very important. So, ready wit is very important for both kinds of speakers. But see, you practice with each other, and eventually you do find out that you have like a proclivity towards a particular speaker role. So discuss it with your teammate, ask them what they are comfortable with. Mostly the motion also helps you decide. Sometimes you know the motion better than your teammate, so you should go first, perhaps. Do you understand?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Ranveer, yes.
Ma'am, I wanted to make a request. Can you check my argument?
I mean, yeah, we're going in an order. If we stumble upon your argument, I will definitely give you a feedback. All right.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, then. You can lower your hand and I'll just quickly browse through the arguments. If I find a new one, I'm going to comment on it. Okay, so Anya's argument is about soldiers aren't the only heroes. Okay, this is an argument that's already been made, so I'm not going to comment on it. Soldiers sacrifice a lot for peace of the country and our safety. Again, an argument that's already made. Uh, Isha's argument, I think I've given feedback on one of your arguments, so it's not fair for me to take another argument from you before I take others. Shivansh says that, okay, this is not an argument. So Shivansh's arguments from proposition are soldiers are ready to give their lives to protect the country. Again, that's an argument that's been made. I've commented on it. Secondly, it is one of the toughest jobs in the world, but it is easy to just casually discuss about without knowing the pain behind them. Well, it's fair for you to say that it's the toughest job, but then you're going to have to give me analysis, all right? And it's not easy for anybody to talk about this. Everybody is trying to think about the situation, putting themselves in the soldier's shoes. we can't come from that point of high-handedness saying we understand the pain of a soldier better. You need to explain what you understand about it instead of saying that it's easy to make casual comments. The third argument is glorification is the proof of respect. Okay, but why can't respect be paid through alternative means? Why just glorification? Why can't respect mean, I mean, so see, respect can be given to all professions. Glorification means more respect to one profession, which means disrespect to other professions. So why is it fair for you to disrespect other professions then, is the question. All right. So this point, I don't think the third point stands. There is a huge possibility that when the soldiers are glorified, they will be the idols of many people. Yes, what's the problem with it? Or like, what's the good thing about it? Why do you want soldiers to become role models? Then again, no analysis to the fourth point. So I think my response for Shivansh's arguments is this: you have 5 arguments, but none of them are analyzed. Like all of them are assertive. You're saying something, and then you're thinking it will work just because you think so. But then that's not how it works, right? So if I'm going to make this point about how people will consider soldiers role models, then I have to explain why that's a good or a bad thing. I might say, see, soldiers becoming role models is a good thing because this will teach you to be fearless. This will teach you to be of service or of use to your own country. But if I want to say that this role model, like this sort of like a role model, is bad, I will say that look, soldiers stand for violence. Soldiers are all about like order and regimentation and people telling you what to do. Soldiers can also be bad sometimes. Do you understand? Because the hostile conditions in which they are kept can make them very, very brutalized. So, do you want your child to have a role model who's this brutalized because of the kind of context that they've been put in? So, again, analysis. What is the good thing about what you're saying? What's the bad thing about what you're saying? Why should we buy your points? Why should we discount the other side's points? It's just the kind of analysis that I need, which doesn't exist in your points just yet, Shivansh. All right. Kanish's arguments. Opening has made a valid point, but I feel soldiers sacrificing on the field does not only affect them, but also their families. Okay, so now Kanish is trying to make a point with a new stakeholder, which is families. Good sort of a start, because like I said yesterday, if you want to find new arguments, try to extend your horizon and find new stakeholders. But then why you have to also explain here why the family will feel good about glorification when you've lost somebody and they will never come back to you, and you're trying to glorify the soldier after you've lost them. Don't you think the family, there is nothing that can like solve the family's grief, or like that glorification doesn't mean anything to them anymore because they will always blame the profession for taking away their loved one from them, right? So glorification is like a very small sort of a compensation against the death that has happened, unfortunately. So you will have to respond to those kinds of questions from all right. uh Russo-Ukraine war and Israel-Palestine war are the recent wars where thousands of soldiers have been killed. Other professions like doctors do save lives, but soldiers are giving their life on the line as well as they're saving other people's lives. Vivan, these are like rebuttals, not arguments. In this argument, genocides can also be discussed. Okay, Bilwal, but how? Soldiers make a lot of sadness in the world, and the families also keep worrying about the soldiers. Even the children's education is affected. Uh, so what's the argument here? Like the thing is that I understand you're saying that soldiers, the profession itself is not the most it's not the most pleasant sort of an experience for somebody to go through this profession. But what's the point you're trying to make then? Should we not glorify it because of these shortcomings? If you're saying that, then it makes sense as an argument, but it's a repeat argument. Uh, Soldiers quite literally, this is Tara's argument, soldiers quite literally put their lives on the line. Again, for the greater good of other people. But see, literally putting your life on the line is not something which you can make like comment on so confidently. Because what does it mean for you to put your life on the line? Do you think dying is the only kind of agony one can be put through? Because I think not dying and having to see a lot of people die in front of your eyes when you've been trying to save them, it can also be just as agonizing as death. Because death happens instantaneously, right? What doesn't end is suffering. And there's a lot of other professions where there is a lot of suffering involved. Do you understand? Think about the people who do menial jobs. Think about the people who have to uh, come and work at your house and like do the daily chores. You might think this is a very comfortable job, but think about it. When they look back at their life, they're spending 4 or 5 hours of their day just cleaning up your house. It's a very like it's the kind of job that takes away any meaning from your life. At least soldiers have that meaning. They always have this pride in them that they're fighting, right? So every job in that sense can be very, very desiccating. It can be like a job which takes away a lot of your strength. It like uh despirits you. So death is not the ultimate torture. Do you understand? In that sense, your argument might have to be revised, Tara. All right. Samya's argument: soldiers go away from their homes, maybe their children or parents, to defend their country in countries like the US or India. Being in the army is a choice. Choosing to defend your country is truly admirable. But then again, I think it's the same kind of response you will get. Choice is fine, but more often than not, sometimes people just become soldiers because that's what fell in their lot, or because they couldn't. They tried for other professions, it did not work well for them. So out of pressure, they are becoming soldiers. Not everybody becomes a soldier as selflessly. That could be a kind of like rebuttal to your argument.
Excuse me.
Yes, Ojas.
I'm very sorry to interrupt. My teammate got disconnected. Could you please let him back into the meeting?
Sure. Devika, could we do that, please? Because I'm looking at the chat right now.
Thank you.
All right. Ojas's argument now. Glorification means making someone like a god. Good. This is the first time I find somebody defining glorification. Thank you for that. You need to define terms, okay? What do you think glorification means for you? A lot of you have just bypassed the word as if everybody has the same understanding of glorification. Well, not quite. For you, so Ojas is clarifying that look, our understanding of glorification is that you makes a god out of somebody. This means that it's not just about respect. You can respect somebody without glorifying them. Glorification is about special treatment which makes them feel like God. Basically, someone who has made no mistakes. Great, good. I think best kind of like definition I've gotten for glorification. This statement in itself is offensive as no one is perfect. Perfect. Okay, nice argument. We're humans and it is in our nature to be, it is not in our nature to be perfect. I think that's what you meant. By making them seem so, we will not only make them not able to meet and talk properly with anyone as they will feel different from the rest. This will also affect the families as they will feel that they are no longer their family member due to being perfect or out of this world. Okay, I think I'm really like, I really like this argument because it brings a completely different perspective to the debate. Now, here we're talking about the performance pressure, maybe. Do you understand? When somebody thinks of me as a god, I'm always fearful of making mistakes. And when you're fearful of making mistakes, you're not living freely. Everybody should have the space to make mistakes. Everybody should have the space of feeling like a human being who has some vulnerabilities. When you glorify soldiers, you're essentially taking away their humanity from them. All right. And I think the good thing about this argument from Ojas is that it is very, very well explained and in short sentences. So yeah, if you guys want what to know what a good argument can look like, I think this is something that I've stumbled upon which I really quite like. So you can also screenshot this for an understanding of what good arguments look like. Well done there. Okay, proposition. I have taken one of Kanishk's arguments, Vivan's also, Kanishk again. I'm not going to take two arguments from one person just so we can make it more inclusive. Vilakshan argument. Soldiers are heroes, they risk their life for the country. No other occupation is as risky as the soldiers. Again, this is an assertion you might have to prove. Because see, risk is subjective. Risk could mean something for you and something else for me. For example, I might be very, very fearful of cockroaches. And if you put me in a room full of cockroaches, that might just pronounce death for me. But if you were in a room full of cockroaches, that might not be risk for you at all. So, what do you mean when you say that the soldier's life is at risk to the core, and this is risky affair as opposed to other professions? Because for you, dying might be the riskiest thing, or the fear of death lurking somewhere might be the riskiest thing. But for me, maybe perpetual suffering without the promise of death might be risky. So, what do you mean when you say that soldier's profession is more risky? So that's sort of like an understanding you need to have. Ranveer's argument, and this is probably the last one I'm going to take. I'm sorry, guys. I agree that everyone sacrifices doctors, teachers, and many other professions, but the soldier sacrifices make possible for other people to sacrifice. Because if the country is not safe and there's chaos, everyone will be saving their life. Okay, good. I think I like how you're thinking, and this is your analysis for why you think soldiers' sacrifice is different from other people's sacrifice. So now it makes sense. Do you understand? Even if you want to make a point where you say that soldiers' sacrifice is a different kind of sacrifice, because again, sacrifice is a subjective word. Sacrifice for me could mean not being able to buy a car of my choice, whereas sacrifice for you could mean something as basic as uh, not studying because there is only one person that your family can afford the education of. So obviously my idea of sacrifice is like very very high sounding, because one can live without getting a luxury car, but then your idea of sacrifice is very basic. So sacrifices like are can be different for different people. So I think Ranveer's argument clears out that this is the kind of sacrifice without which other sacrifices cannot be made, or without which other professions cannot be pursued effectively. So this is why this sacrifice matters more than other sacrifices. So this gives credibility to the argument. All right. I've tried to give some feedback and I've tried to make this helpful for everyone. But if you still don't understand, please watch the recording, because obviously sometimes you need to have the space to like play it and replay it to understand what I was trying to say. I'm going really fast because I wanted to take a lot of arguments today, which I have. So please make use of the recording if you don't understand something from today, because I understand that this 1 hour can be very like it can be an information overload of sorts. Yes, Ruhina, your question.
I know I shouldn't be requesting this, but could you just check the last part of my argument? It can be done if once everyone is gone as well.
Sure. Like, yes, okay then. If you're really keen on showing me your argument, you could just text me.
Okay. So will your number be in the chat here?
Not quite, because I don't think I'll be able to find it in the deluge of messages.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Others are there. Devika, I think we can stop the recording now. We're done with the motion discussion for today. So what we're going to be doing today for your convenience, like everybody's convenience, is that I will send the like entire PDF of all the like slides that we have covered from day 1 to day 4. It's going to have both the motions that we have discussed. It's going to have arguments on both the motions from prop and op, at least the nudge that you need to think about arguments from both the sides. It's going to have everything like speaker roles, training schedule that we have followed, etc. Please access that PDF. That should be your go-to. Secondly, I'll be sharing 3 YouTube links: day 1, day 3, and day 4, because day 2 is fine. I mean, day 1 is very similar to day 2. So day 1, day 3, and day 4, please have a look at that. And I'll be sharing a PDF which explains the VB format in detail. So 3 things I'm going to be sharing. Make best use of it. And I wish you guys all the best for the tournament. I hope all of you do exceedingly well. Looking forward to it. You'll enjoy the motions. The motions are all set. We're prepared to have you debate on the 20th of January. I'll see you all then. Until then, I'll just call it a day and say goodbye if there are no other questions. Are we sorted? Okay. There are some questions. Bilawal, if that's how it's pronounced, what's your question?
Excuse me, ma'am. I was not sent the mail, and I was not in the attendance list too, and my partner.
You might have to mail us. Please mail us at hello@ogly.ai.
Okay, ma'am.
Ranveer, yes.
Can me and my partner be on the same device?
Yeah. Okay, that's doable. Just 1 second. Who else? Ranveer, lower your hand if your question's answered. Or just yes.
Yeah, about who we're going to argue against. Will you be telling that on 20th or before?
No, on the spot.
Okay.
20th, yes. Arya?
Ma'am, on the day 2, you spoke about the speaker roles, so I missed that. So what do I do? How do I listen to it? Because the day 2 recording isn't uploaded.
See, I'm going to send a document which has speaker roles in a very, very detailed fashion, like more detailed than what I said. Okay?
Okay.
So that's going to help a lot more than the recording would. Mahi, yes?
Yes, ma'am. I had a couple questions regarding what we can include in our argument. So I understand examples are extremely important. And when it comes to examples, can we use case studies that might be industry specific? Like in case our opponents don't know about it, is that all right?
It's not, because see, the problem with case studies is that not everybody might know about it. And you can use hypothetical examples and they'll be just as effective as a case study. Do you get it?
All right.
Like if
Yeah.
you want to explain
Just
poverty
convert
in
them
India,
into hypothetical.
yeah, you shouldn't. Yeah. So like just make it sound like a regular situation which does not have any statistical basis. You don't have to say it's a study that was conducted. You can just say this is my hypothetical example.
All right.
So
And secondly, we aren't allowed to use any references, right? Like in case any message or any idea has been inspired by a book or a movie or a podcast or any medium like that, we shouldn't cite it at all, right?
No, you can. So if you
We
watched
can?
a web series,
Yeah.
and you think that this is very relevant and you can make a point there, so you can say that look, period dramas are now being recreated with like black people in the royal families, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of an input you can give. This comes from your lived experiences, right?
All right. So it is
So
fair to
whatever,
include.
yeah. Whatever comes from your natural experiences is more than welcome.
All right. And ma'am, since you mentioned natural experiences, can we include anecdotes in our arguments? Because they are very effective in terms of.
You can use anecdotes, but the problem with anecdotes is that you will say, once when I went to school, this happened. Now you're an individual who does not speak for the masses. That's the problem with
Okay, it's not
anecdotes.
applicable to everyone else.
Yeah, it's not applicable to other people.
It's not effective, but it's not that they aren't allowed, right?
It's not like they're not allowed, but they're not effective. So why would you want to use them?
All right, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Vivan, yes?
Can I send you my argument so that you can check whether it's like good or not, or if there's anything I can add?
Sure, but don't make it very lengthy because then I won't be able to respond.
Yeah, so I don't know if which number to send it on.
You'll get it from the WhatsApp group.
Okay, thank you.
Miss Niyati, I've sent the argument to you. Sandesh.
All right. Okay. I'll check and get back.
Sure.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining in for 4 days and making this like interactive and fun. I had a very good time training you all, and I wish you all the very best. We'll see you on 20th now. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Thank you,
Bye,
ma'am.
ma'am. Thank
See
you.
you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you.